Labor leader Mike Matika returned late last week from a trip to the White House. Matika was part of a delegation invited to Washington to discuss infrastructure investments in Illinois and Indiana. Legislators, presidential advisors, and Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg were on hand. The goal was to hear about how best to spend the $350 billion allocated by the American Rescue Plan, plus nearly $400 billion of additional funds earmarked in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act passed in 2021. But when Matika first got the invite, he thought he was being punked.
They got this email, you're invited to this White House meeting. And I've never seen a scam like this before. And then I looked at .gov. It looked very legitimate. So I quickly signed up and with a little outreach figured out it was Senator Durbin's staff.
Where did you find it as maybe halfway between campaign event and actual kind of policy making or strategy?
Well, I think one thing that the Biden administration is really trying to push is this idea of economic recovery and the literally not millions, but billions of dollars that are coming for infrastructure, that are coming to agencies that are trying to not only stabilize, but rebuild communities. Even though it was an official event, policy focused in terms of here's the money we're spending, the subtext you can read into that is take this message back home.
What were the key topics that bubbled up as important specifically to Illinois and Indiana?
The administration folks, Tom Perez, who's the president's senior advisor, spoke, and so did Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. And they were both touting, here's the money that's coming into your communities. Here's the investments that are coming. A number of groups took the opportunity to stand up and say, here's what else we need. And of course, the people that were there were not really in a position to do more than take notes. But social service people in particular were still talking about lags there. And a lot of the LGBTQ folks were talking about still feeling very discriminated against and wanting to see stronger federal legislation to protect themselves.
How do we get from A to B? How do we get from these sorts of meetings and listening sessions to actually enacting policies that address those concerns?
Yeah, I think you will see, particularly in Normal, some of that investment very quickly. McLean County spent their money particularly aiding rural water systems. Saybrook got their water tower and water system fixed, and that was vintage 1936. They got an update thanks to that. The county also put money into road resurfacing. The city of Bloomington did small business loans, not loans, but small business grants to kind of keep doors open during COVID. And for those who suffered through that sewer water backup at Colton Street, Bloomington's put $5 million of that money toward that project.
Labor is your primary area of expertise, but certainly you know a lot about everything in this town. So what were the things that you wanted to make sure you shared with legislators?
When the Secretary of Transportation asked for comment, I immediately raised my hand. My local union, Labor's Local 362, 8 or 10 years ago, we took in 3 to maybe 8 apprentices a year. Right now, we have 58 apprentices. The Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 99 in town has tripled their apprenticeship. In 2017, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers had 19 apprentices in their Bloomington Normal classes. Now they have 97. And that's happening not just because of the Infrastructure Act and the Recovery Act, but also Governor Pritzker's Build Illinois. There's road work, there's sewer work, and the other thing, too, is broadband access, solar development, wind farm development. All those things are tied to some of this state and federal investment. If this work continues for 8 to 10 years, those young people are going to have a really solid foundation for some earnings that can make a difference in their lives and hopefully make a difference in the community.
The previous generation of blue-collar union workers have kind of shifted their political leanings more towards the Republican Party. Where is the dissonance there? And are you seeing that also in this younger generation of apprentices?
They're frequently reminded at the meetings that, look, you have a job, you have work now, you have these opportunities. because who's in the governor's mansion, who's in the White House, who's in the legislature, who's in Congress. When you come to vote, it's your choice, but stop and think about your paycheck. And the more we have this economic development, the more it's going to turn around good for you.
There is a different sentiment in, say, Appalachia and the union workers working in mines, for example, who are very concerned about the change of industry away from coal towards sustainable energy. So, I mean, do you think that sentiment is really specific to Illinois or to democratically run states?
Yeah, it's a good point, because I think it's when you look at our political presidential choices right now, are we choosing optimism or are we choosing fear? You can easily play up fear and say, oh, the country's going to hell. We got to go back to the way things were. But we really are a country that's traditionally one that looks toward the future. And I look at the level of investment that these programs represent, and I think about Franklin Roosevelt in the middle of the Great Depression, in a time of great fear and anxiety, saying, we're going to build this country, and millions of dollars going into the national parks and the state parks that we still enjoy today, roads being built, bridges being built. That was transformative to this country and its economy. If these programs deliver what's promised, we could really have that 21st century infrastructure that's not only roads and bridges, but also electronic networks and electrical grid systems and a whole different way of orienting our lives, but that can still be fair to people in terms of offering decent jobs.
In 2021, the Normal Town Council approved a measure to accept $16 million in federal grant money. That was to fund the Uptown Station underpass, plus another $5 million in state money from Rebuild Illinois. The town is chipping in $1.7 million for that project. A planned $1.5 million upgrade to West College Avenue improves road surfaces and accessibility for pedestrians and bicyclists. That's aimed at better serving Rivian's workforce and accommodating increased traffic to the area. I spoke with Bloomington Normal labor leader Mike Matika.